Okay, we are on and we are back. Now, talk about your break glass in case of comeback measure. Here we are, it's been a while. Halo fucking 2. I've got lots to say about Bungie, maybe a bit of new stuff to say about Halo. Stuff in video games in general, and we just need to start building presence and momentum online again. I've tried a couple of times, and trying to talk about anything but the game in front of me gets a bit tragic immediately and sours the mood, so this is the Halo video. If you have questions about where the hell has Anthony been and what's he doing, put them in the comments, I'll be happy to get to you, but I think we gotta be in the game here to make this happen, so let's go. I played this for like 5 seconds earlier just to test sound, and I have to say it got me eager. I enjoy Halo a lot. Halo 2 is still quite fun and interesting. A lot to say about it relative to Halo 1. I maybe don't enjoy it as much in some ways, but still find it equally interesting and something we can still talk about as a work of art rather than a failure to be a work of art. Halo 4 was a bit of an ordeal. I know, I've been told by some people they enjoy watching that one again, and in general I still get good feedback on this channel's work, so it's like, fuck, you know, it's all kind of the same to me. It doesn't feel like I did a lot here, but if people are like going back and watching this stuff again, that's just a bit tragic. That's on me to fail to keep you people entertained, so here we are, Halo 2, very linear, fast, cinematic game, which is very much lends itself to being played end to end, so this might be a fast series. I really hammer out and give you people a deluge of Anthony content. That might be fun for all of us. You know, God forbid, you know, this all works out alright. I really hope it does. My computer's been crashing a bit on me again. New computer in the future for me, maybe? We'll see, but anyway. OBS seems to be behaving. Let's get Halo 2 going. I assure you, lots to say. That game in progress, that's just me from testing earlier. And we're playing on normal. This is the only Bungie Halo I haven't beaten on Legendary because it's very silly. And this game has a remaster like Halo CE, which we can talk about a bit. We can't toggle the visuals in the cutscenes, so we're just going to leave them as is, and in-game I'll show you how they updated it later, and we can talk about the cutscenes later. You can look them up yourself, what they did. Even then, you can see this game's look is... It was still made for the Xbox, and on Steam it's still the same game, and it's really remarkable what the ambition was here, was to basically create a generation jump appearance on the same machine. They ripped the engine apart and rebuilt it, and the result is this. You can really see the thin textures stretched to breaking point, the limited amount of stuff on screen, but good god are they trying. And holy shit, look at the cinematic ambition. There's Keith David, the black guy from The Thing, talking. And oh my god, the Covenant are speaking English, and they have complex conversations with each other.
With all the ships in my command.
When you first saw Halo,
I am assuming you know Halo if you're listening to this, or you at least are familiar, so you don't need me to let you listen. I will talk over this and give commentary, but yes, this is a great opening. We established so much so quickly. Of course, it's got that competent cinematic presentation, but also just... This game makes a lot more explicit, but I think it's still kind of a tip of an iceberg relative to the complexity of Halo. We see more here.
By the time I learned the demon's intent.
But yes, so what's happening in this cutscene? This is the leader of the Covenant who were responding to the Master Chief in the first game. The captain of the main ship, whatever. And yeah, he's on trial for fucking up and getting everything blown up. Here are the Covenant religious leaders, our weird, bug-eyed, sickly ET men who look sort of like alien popes.
But your inability to safeguard Halo was a colossal failure.
And yes, Keith David failed to protect the ring. That was rather important to them, like finding the Ark of the Covenant or something, and this guy let humans blow it up.
My campaign against the humans.
No, you will not.
And who is this guy? albino
Soon the great
Bigfoot,
journey shall begin.
and his regular Bigfoot friends, with their
But when it
beautiful
does,
low-res
the
fur.
weight of your heresy will stay your feet, and you shall be left behind.
Don't worry, we will look closely at lots of models in this game to get a look at what's going on aesthetically, ideas behind their construction, and the technical quirks of just discussing how they look. But yes, we get to see more human stuff in this game.
Throughout the gel layer.
We were stuck in the one
Optics,
ship before, but
totally
this is
fried.
fleets, defense
Let's not even talk
satellites,
about the power
an
supply.
armory.
You know how expensive this gear is, son?
And there's the slightly updated Halo 2 Master Chief, allegedly wearing the same... Oh wait, no, sorry. That was a piece of his old suit that guy was waving around, but the Master Chief in this game, new suit of armor, which explains it working slightly different and just gearing everything up to align with the aesthetic rejiggering they pulled off in this game. Now, I'm not 100% on... Oh no, it loaded fine.
I guess it was
The
all
Master Chief
obsolete
collection
anyway.
isn't a total
Your
disaster.
new suit's the Mark 6.
Halo
Just
2
came
loads up
from
fine.
Songnam this morning. Try and take it easy until you get used to the upgrades.
And yeah, here's your first
Okay,
actually
let's
playing
test
the
your
game. Look at
targeting
Halo
first thing.
2.
Please look at the top light.
This is a rather quaint throwback to the
Good.
first
Now
game,
look
and
at the
again it's
bottom
your
light.
test to see if you reflexively
look at the
push
top
up
light
or
again.
down to look
That's
up in a
it.
first-person
Now the bottom
shooter.
one.
The inversion test. I'm just playing it
Everything
normal,
checks
but I
out.
actually
Stand
remember as a
by.
kid, like I
I'm
used to
gonna
do
offline the
both
inhibitors.
just to see how they'd feel, and
Move around a little.
they were
Get a
both
feel
pretty
for
much
it.
fine to
When
me.
you're ready, come meet me by the zapper.
Okay, good, he said when you're ready. I remember this game talking a fair bit at you, but it's not one of those, like, frantic games where you have to keep moving. It will let me do the Anthony thing. I assure you, we are going to look at this room top to bottom. Oh god, it's so nice to be in an old three-dimensional video game space. I do just love them in general. And oh god, there's so much elaborate Bungie world construction. They were still more or less at the top of their game when they made this thing. Halo 2's production, you may have heard, a bit frantic, a bit under the pump, a bit poorly managed, but god damn it, when it's all just done, they launch the game. This is basically how it was in the Xbox in 2004 or whenever. You know, you don't really feel the strain unless you're looking very closely. It's really like, everything they delivered, they really landed, and they could just, you know, again, as always, it's still the game made by the same people, the same core creative team. They had all the right ideas informing everything they did still, so yeah, anything they still did, they believed in all of it, so it all comes out fundamentally right. It's still an aesthetically unified, brilliantly aesthetically unified and coherent work drawing from very competent, very profound and thoughtful science fiction writing by guys who have several titles behind them mostly. And that's of course something I'll get into, who had done how much and what in the history of Bungie. We've done rather a lot of work on that since the last game. Ooh, look at that sexy lighting effect. Yeah, Pixar, eat your hearts out. We got all these little dynamic things going on. I say dynamic, that's obviously not, but it feels dynamic, doesn't it? We're on a gigantic space station, there's stuff floating around outside, there's the moon, there's space, still depicted as I talked about in the first game. Bungie, they have that brilliant restraint to make space, you know, black with white dots peeking through. That's how I like space. I think it's the most aesthetically striking way to do it. I think it's basically how space actually works, and yeah, I think it's just very... Ooh, there goes another ship! I think it's very crass and tasteless to make it all like weird toothpaste nebula vomit. Like, no, you don't make space more space by adding more to it. You create a greater sense of what I find aesthetically striking about space by taking away from it. Make it more black, make it more nothing. It's in the name. Space. But yeah, this is how Halo 2 looked, and we might be like up-resed a little bit. What did the Xbox render this on? I don't remember. You can probably look that up, but yeah, we've got the same textures, we've got the same... yeah, just everything, the same user interface and all that. Or if I hit pause, it's different. I love that this guy's willing to let me fuck around, but he'll still react if I, like, bash the hell out of physics objects. Yes, we have more physics in this game, but we aren't quite at, like, the true kind of Xbox 360 generation standard where everything goes flying. But there's a very good amount. You really don't hear it enough, I think, for how well it fits that Bungie are most readily compared to Valve, and that this is kind of their Half-Life 2. And like Half-Life 2, I'm just bouncing around fucking with things when someone wants to have a serious conversation with me. But yes, these games came out in a similar time, and they were both... This is what was bleeding-edge tech at the time. You still have this blocky, geometric-feeling 3D world construction, but increasingly elaborate and naturalistic, and yeah, being able to play around with Havoc physics was really mind-blowing at the time. Does this game use Havoc? I think it does, but anyway, my point is it's really, the tech is pretty much at the level of Half-Life 2. You can't pick up objects, but not, I think, because that was beyond the engine's capabilities, but just because, you know, they're not making that kind of game. They don't want to distract me. I will be looking over the barrel of a gun for 99% of this thing once I'm out of this room, but you know me, this is an Anthony video. If you want to see me playing the game, God forbid you got on this channel without knowing. This ain't that kind of channel, so, you know, go hit, like, I don't know. I'm sure there's a million guys like Creeperman90 who will just play through this game end to end for you if that's what you're into. But of course, if you are into that, just play it yourself, please. Get some gratification out of your time. But anyway, what was I saying? Yes, Halo 2, a wonderfully constructed game, under a lot of pressure, and I was saying I've studied Bungie and this game's production a lot, and I kinda hate to say it, but a lot of what I said, which was kind of speculative in the Halo 1 video, might be maybe a touch outdated by now. That was a while ago, and you know, I was kind of like working into the mystery, which is kind of fundamental to my understanding of video games and what makes them good, which is basically I was really struggling with the single question of who wrote Halo? Like, I knew of the central creative team, that being Jason Jones, Joseph Staten, and Marty O'Donnell, as I believe the situation to be. And I was kind of thinking Joseph Staten seems to be the one most confident speaking up, and he talks a lot about the story fitting together and constructing cutscenes, and he has a fairly competent sounding life story. I thought it was kind of more him, but having really looked a lot further, played like basically every Bungie game end to end, and read like everything about the production history of all of these games, I've really, really brought the picture together, and I've realized that basically, yeah, it's Jason Jones, the guy who in the commentary tracks for these games really doesn't speak much and sounds kind of sullen, like he doesn't want to be there. That's not because he's a tech nerd who doesn't care about things. It's because he's a writer and he's basically just reticent, as these big figures often are, about his own work. And, you know, he might not be saying the most, but he is the one who really has the most going on in his head in relation to every part of Halo. Now, if you don't know, the brief history of Bungie is that Jason Jones was making games on the Mac for fun when he was a college student, and another guy, Alex Seropian, another key old Bungie name, found this stuff and encouraged him to try to sell his work, and the two of them became Halo. Seropian, who also knows computers and artsy stuff decently well, committed himself, pardon me, fully to being the business manager so that he could just serve as a base and support so that Jones could get his games finished and sell them. Jones himself was not the kind of personality who would, like, busily and efficiently run a business, go through all the papers, get everything licensed and sorted and ready to be on shelves. No, Jones is the man who sits with a computer and you leave him alone and he will just produce giant notebooks of ideas and refine them into finished games. The first game which impressed Seropian being a kind of, all the way back in like ancient early Mac days through ancient internet, an online competitive kind of survival, I almost, God help me, I want to say extraction thing called Minotaur, the Maze of Crete, already there was the fascination with violence and mythology at work there. It was very impressive stuff. And from there, with his friend Greg Kirkpatrick, after that he wrote Pathways into Darkness. And you have the Mexilor videos helping you along a bit here, but, you know, the typical gamer problems are in there, that he basically treats these games like they are kind of spewed out of the aether, and they're black boxes which you can only understand as themselves, not as products of intention. So it's like, I was reading a bunch of Bungie stuff earlier. One factor that inspired me to make this was sharing production materials on Myth back and forth with a friend. We were also playing it online, which is very fun. Myth co-op campaigns are so fucking fun. If you haven't played Myth, I do strongly recommend it, but anyway. I was reading fan theories on Myth, which are very impressive. I am convinced that, like with his other games, there was more than just a desire to pile up cool stuff. I've dismissed it as kind of a lighter work compared to Halo. I do think that, pardon me, Myth is as rich a work in intention as Halo, quite possibly. Just, you know, Jason Jones is a very weird guy, as I said. I shouldn't say weird, but if you listen to the commentary videos on this game, Jones, Staten, and O'Donnell, what you'll find is that Jones barely speaks, and I just get the impression he's very reticent and very basically willing to just drop stuff and leave it be. And shit, you know, Jason, I relate very much. I have dropped and abandoned and written off that much stuff I've done that people thought was fantastic. I cannot call you out in the slightest, so, you know. Very understandable impulse that lots of people can get at various times, but anyway, where I was going is, Myth is a very interesting game with a lot of very elaborate ideas under it, but what happened there apparently is just that he was very happy to leave it at one game, or the two that they made, and what I learned eventually was that some other people took over the work a bit. There was a GURPS role-playing book, the system that inspired the RPG mechanics in Fallout, and a third game outsourced to a different company, sort of like Marathon Infinity, but not so much so. Marathon Infinity was run by Greg Kirkpatrick, who co-wrote the first two games. So basically a deliberate artistic conclusion. Possibly the only Bungie big work that actually had, you know, someone who gave a shit about it working on it all the way through to see it to what they considered a satisfying conclusion, which is something we'll talk about with Halo. God, if I like this, I might go all the way to 3 so we can talk about what happened with the production of that. But yeah, basically, what happened with Myth is that Jason Jones had all of it worked out. You will find, if you really dig through what little there is of people talking about him or interviews with him, that he, like, makes notebooks and stuff and fills them with ideas to really, like, basically build worlds. Like, if there is a key, like, writer, world builder of Halo in every Bungie game, it's definitely Jason Jones. And he's perfectly content to make just, like, this, you know, insane Mariana Trench depth written thing, which isn't just, like, names of stuff, fictional history. Oh, the goblins came from this mountain, they fought this battle with the dwarves. Like, no, he will full-blown be, like, writing thematically fitting meta stuff about what it even means for this game to exist. Your role in it as a player, the whole world is a giant metaphor or something. You know, basically what I say is going on with Halo. Myth, I think, is doing something similar, but I don't have the picture worked out to a satisfying degree yet. But where I want to go with this Myth point is just that Jason Jones was perfectly happy to walk away from that. You know, Myth isn't complete when he has, like, laid out the thesis before you. Jones is just not that kind of artist. He is like, no, the point of the thesis is to get the game out of him, is more how he thinks, I believe. Like, Myth is done when it goes gold and it's on the shelves and you can buy it and it makes him a pile of money. And with that, they have the freedom to move on to the next project. That is when Myth is complete. But, you know, they made Myth 2, they had a few more ideas. It was really... It seems quaint to say this now, but it was kind of a finish for the tech of that game. A lot of stuff which seems kind of beyond notice now was very exciting at the time. It's funny, you read people, like, writing about the game when it came out, and stuff like just the way you could build multiplayer lobbies and mess with the level editor, and just very subtle points within that were considered mind-blowingly exciting to the kind of person who was into Bungie games at the time. Very much, you know, games for gamers, hardcore stuff. But yes, there was still work to be done there, and the work was not the writing. It's very strange. I've more and more come to the conclusion that Jason Jones is, like, the greatest writer America has ever produced for video games, the greatest contributor of ideas, the greatest visionary in working out what a video game could be. And Jones would probably just, like, double take and ask me if I was retarded if I said that to him. Like, he really just does not seem to feel like a man with, like, a mission to carry his ideas to the world. Like, no, he's just like, yeah, I love making this stuff, and I'm gonna make my fuck you money, as he calls it, at some point. Like, he said, like, eventually his relationship with Halo came to be just like, okay, I'm getting my fuck you money out of this for all the grief it's giving us. Which I guess leads up to the game that's in front of us now. I've just been doing the classic Anthony hops in a room for a while now, but yes. Halo 2, what happened? Well, I just gave you that whole spiel on Myth just to establish that I can say with pretty much certainty that while Halo 2 is not a vapid work, Jason Jones was very happy to consider it absolutely 100% done with where he left it in Halo Combat Evolved. If you disagree, take it up with me in the comments, but yes, I really don't think that the fact he was willing to leave it there means it does not have all these ideas I attributed to it. It's just that, yeah, Jason Jones is that odd kind of person who will happily write like 20 notebooks worth of ideas and really build a genuine world, which he did for Halo, and he's very happy to have that manifest as like a 5-hour-long video game where all you appear to be doing is just shooting aliens and zombies, with weirdly well-informed and thought-out aesthetics underneath that. How is that so? Artists are strange people, what can I say? Something I greatly enjoyed reading that I just found recently was the British novelist Ian Watson talking about the time he spent with Stanley Kubrick planning the movie AI, which never got made by Kubrick. He died, unfortunately, and Steven Spielberg finished the project. But Ian Watson, we might talk about him at some point in relation to science fiction and fictional worlds which grow large and are handled by different artists. Let me briefly check that OBS is behaving itself. I believe it is. Very nice. Flip back to the game. Yes, so Halo was considered done by its kind of master creator after the first game, but, you know, it really became the Xbox mover and the thing that excited people the most about a machine that had, you know, before Halo was really struggling for an identity and a source of, like, what the fuck is an Xbox and why should I care about it? You know, after Halo, that's sorted. Xbox is the machine with John Halo on it, the Master Chief, and, you know, it's the weird, futurish kind of PC-adjacent games with, you know, very robust features, very fancy, heavy, adult, and Western aesthetics. That is what the machine is, and Microsoft, you know. You may or may not have heard that myth further leads into this, that Microsoft acquired Bungie because Myth 2, it went gold with a bug in it which would have erased, like, pretty much the entire hard drives of certain people who were uninstalling it in a certain way. I believe this was found in time by the Japanese localization team, and so the game was, like, going to shelves already, however many tens of thousands or, you know, God help them, hundreds of thousands of units produced, and so this is, like, the worst thing that could happen. No matter how much money the game makes, they are probably going to be, like, down and losing because it will cost so much to recall the game, but, you know, it would piss so many people off, and it's just, like, a bad thing to ignore this, so they did the right thing, took the massive hit, recalled Myth 2, and then they're suddenly, like, not-so-free actors. They're kind of financially in trouble, not sure what to do, and they've got this offer from Microsoft who are trying to... It's funny, at the time they really seemed like they were trying to be sympathetic to art fags and build a real fancy operation people could feel genuinely passionate about. Microsoft were trying to recruit American game development teams and studios, get talented people on board. The leader of the Xbox project, I believe, was one of the guys from Looking Glass Studios. You know, those games, Thief and so on. A serious guy who believed in video games. Anyway, they were looking at people, they liked Bungie, they found them impressive. Bungie maybe didn't necessarily like Microsoft, you know, they were Mac guys originally, and they really valued their freedom and eclectic ways of doing things. Like I've already kind of said, Jason Jones, a bit of an odd unit, very much his own man, but, you know, with Microsoft, they would be set in the immediate future, and at the time, Microsoft were really, like, contrary to mythology that they were, like, really cracking the whip, they were actually trying to be extremely accommodating at this point, and, you know, this meant the financial problem was resolved. Microsoft aren't going to let them go belly up without delivering a game, and it just means a lot will happen, and they're trying to really sweet talk them over, saying that, like, you know, we don't want you to, like, make boring, lame Bungie shit. We want you to... Sorry, boring, lame Microsoft shit. We want you to be Bungie. Be yourselves. That's how you got our attention. That's how you'll get other people's attention for our machine. So anyway, the relationship is formed. Halo doesn't just do well, it does fantastically. So naturally, we need a Halo 2. And yeah, because Jason Jones is the kind of guy who builds a mountain of ideas for like a one-off game, because that's just sort of how he thinks, and he's very happy to leave things unstated explicitly. We have all the ideas we need to make a second game. And on the subject of ideas, I'll say now, just because I don't know when else I'll get it in, how I got into this who wrote Halo question, I was looking at the novels to clarify some things because they were very elaborate and very thematically coherent as well, which interested me. I thought, to be this on the money with the ideas, was this guy contributing the ideas, the author of the novels, Eric Nyland? And I looked into that and thought, like, I don't know, did Eric Nyland kind of take over the story from within? But no, of course, I eventually found Jason Jones, but I did find interesting stuff investigating Nyland. He's the author of Fall of Reach and the subsequent novels which play out before and alongside the original Bungie Halo games, and why he really got it is kind of twofold. Him and another guy, Eric Troutman, wrote the Halo Bible based on notes given to them by the Bungie team, which presumably means a lot of stuff from Jason Jones, and where the value in that came in was, of course, that, you know, these guys were not Jones, they were not, like, artists who were happy to just kind of, like, leave things up in the air. They're very, like, more conventional copywriters, professional world book writers, and they want to just iron things out and give them a level of professional finish and polish, which is kind of what Jones won't deliver. He will deliver, like, chaotic notebooks and stuff that just kind of vibes right with him, so teaming him up with kind of, like, nerdy, kind of conventional fill-in-the-gaps guys gives you really a very strong all-around piece of writing. And that's something that actually came from Microsoft. I don't know if I've said this somewhere else or just written it in discourse with other people, but yes, Microsoft forced these outside writers who were just kind of like very professional copy guys in to refine Halo, write a tie-in novel, do the world encyclopedia to keep things straight, and if they wanted to make more Halo stuff, that'd be there. And I think that was actually a good move by Microsoft. I think it definitely imposed discipline upon the project, which was otherwise lacking. I believe Eric Troutman wrote the final in-game script. That was kind of a chaotic mess at the time, and they really needed someone who could just, like, bash out consistent standard work to just go through it and go, like, okay, what needs to be, like, said and established where, like, cut this out, put this line here, just here is your finished thing which says everything you needed to say, there it is. So, like, you know, Bungie are kind of a chaotic shit show. If left to do that themselves, who knows how long it gets left off and what else gets disrupted because it's not ready in time, but, like, he said, like, yeah, their script wasn't ready and they had, like, a day or so, like, before they needed it, and he did that. So yes, good on him. And it's funny for how important he is. Troutman and Nyland also introduced a few key concepts of Halo, like the ODSTs, which, yeah, apparently Bungie weren't crazy about. They're like, who needs that shit? And then it became a big part of the games, but why that's funny is that Troutman just came to hate them because he's so, like, spiritually the opposite of guys like Jones, and he's basically been written out of the history of these games. It was actually very hard for me to find him. Like, he's barely like a footnote mention in a couple of places in like the Halo wiki, and on YouTube I found one interview with him, or a segment of an interview, which is about 15 minutes long, and it's absolutely hilarious because he talks like Cantbot and is just like super fucking like ass mad whenever Bungie get mentioned, and he's just like, God, they're fucking idiots. I wrote this part, they didn't even like it, and it worked. They'd be so fucked without me. And it's just really funny because he was an important guy, and I'm about the only one you will hear giving him any credit. I have this book, it's actually open now, let me check it. An okay book on the production of Halo, which I think misses a lot, but has some good information. One by Loic Rallet, a French guy, called Halo, a space opera from Bungie. I think if you Control F Eric Troutman in that book, he literally turns up in one footnote. That's fucking hilarious. The man who created ODSTs is one mention in the book of Halo's production. But anyway, yes, it's a very eclectic and chaotic production process, the writing of Halo. And the other thing I wanted to say, why did Nyland seem to get it so well? Well, having read, being one of the few guys who would have access to all of Jones's notes would of course bring a lot of it together, but also Nyland has said, like, I found interviews with him, he's a very positive sounding, he seems like a nice guy, very happy to talk. He says that, like, he was super happy to write for Halo because his favorite writer is, this is very important, Roger Zelazny, and his favorite novel is Lord of Light by Zelazny. And if you don't know, Lord of Light is basically a novel about... It's a science fiction novel in which Hindu mythology is basically transposed onto an identical story about science fiction in the future, basically a contrived scenario and fictional world in which everything which, you know, Indian, Hindu, Buddhist mythology, lore, the names, the events, everything, all of that plays out again in this science fiction scenario. So, of course, my understanding of Halo, which I have not found a single thing to knock, I think I'm just obviously right. Yeah, I think it's very obvious that Eric Nyland, like, read Jason Jones's notes and thought, oh, wowie zowie, this is just like Roger Zelazny. He's writing ancient mythology into science fiction circumstances. This is the most exciting job I'll ever get. And he was just so eager, he was happy to just go 110% when he wrote Halo: The Fall of Reach. A very entertaining novel, I recommend if you find this kind of thing I'm talking about interesting. And yeah, this happy, chipper, nerdy little guy, Eric Nyland, I think he just didn't know what he was unleashing on the world, he was too excited. He's just thinking, yay, I get to be like my hero, Roger Zelazny, and write mythologically inspired science fiction. I'm going to do it so right, I'm going to look up all the references, I'm going to make it all play out just proper. And it's just like, yeah, Eric, which mythology are you writing into a science fiction world? And, you know, it's, as we've said, it's the mythology of the ancient world, the classical world, the Greek tyrants, the Romans, the ancient war bands and manabuns. And Eric Nyland, he just happily powers through it all like, yeah, isn't it exciting to be a youth and build your war band? You're like a pack of wolves, you embody the spirits of animals and kill your enemies mercilessly? Wee, I love science fiction. And I'm just thinking, yeah, Eric, that's great. You seem like the nicest guy ever, so you probably would never have come up with this yourself, but God, is it a happy accident that you ended up kind of indirectly working for Jason Jones. And, of course, yeah, Jason Jones would never make it that explicit or anything himself, but yeah, Jason Jones is not going to write a big novel in which he puts everything out flat for you, but Nyland will interpret his ideas and deliver one based on them, and yeah, that's just come together brilliantly. The construction of the novel, very intricate and strong, is Eric Nyland's work. The spirit of the novel is Jason Jones. And I keep saying Jones specifically, and yeah, evidence all over the joint if you care to look. One of the most entertaining clips a couple of people have sent me is one about the production of their old games. I forget which channel on YouTube this is on, but it's an interview with a guy who did a fan level pack. Pardon me. A fan level pack for Myth 2. And the guy says that, like, he spoke to Jason Jones briefly because he was in charge of it, and Jones is, like, testing his ability to build something which feels like Myth, and he's like, and Jones says to this guy, you know, it's him relaying the story, just this generic kind of schlubby-looking nerdy guy. He's like, so I meet Jones, and Jones is like, you know, have you read Julius Caesar's commentaries on the Gallic War? Are you familiar with the Tuatha de Danann? And the guy's like, oh, I'm having all these questions put to me, and I'm like a 20-year-old nerd, and I say, oh, you know, I've played Dungeons and Dragons, and Jones is like, clearly exasperated and displeased with him. That's such an awesome story and really brings out what makes Halo different, that it's, you know, the director of the production of Halo 1 and 2 was a guy who, you know, is capable of generating that interaction. How much of that is going on in Western video games? And yeah, like, why did that take me so long to put together that I wasn't talking about this stuff in the Halo 1 series or 4? Well, that's just the thing, like, listen to how obscure the references I have, like a footnote in the Halo wiki and that kind of stuff. Again, Jason Jones is an extremely reticent artist, and given the state of Bungie now, you could be forgiven for thinking that, like, not a lot of talented people are left around there. Something went wrong, maybe all the good people are gone, but, you know, Marathon, the new game, honestly kinda blows me away with its aesthetics and its premise. A friend of mine has been in the, one of the betas, and he's showing me things like the character presentation more than like the visual design. Like, okay, here's what a mission screen looks like, here's how you talk to the different interest groups in the world of Marathon now, and I'm like, fuck, this is inspired. Clearly some stuff's going right, but before the Marathon reveal, what did we have? We had the Dark Age of Destiny, which is, you know, a real production disaster. I've read a fair bit about that. We can go into that at some point, but God, I've established basically what I wanted to lead up to actually playing Halo 2, so we might do a level or two of that now. Ah, dearie me, but I just have fun once I get going talking, but yes, so I hope I've established Jason Jones, key creative voice of Halo, this game, not planned, but done properly still, more cinematic, a few other things, graphics, pushed to the breaking point of the original Xbox very impressively. One factor in this game's production being fucked was they made an overtuned demo for E3, which basically none of the tech from that was usable because it was running on a bleeding edge PC and almost killing it. They couldn't run that on an Xbox, so they basically had no tech work and not an exact idea of what this specific game was going to be like 9 months before their like launch date they had to aim for. And again, Microsoft were lenient with them. Like, this game, to like fully please Microsoft, would have come out like a year earlier. But, you know, Jason Jones is kind of bored of Halo after making one game. The production team are kind of like spinning their wheels, looking at other projects and thinking like, oh, well, we can kind of like, you know, we're a like weird 90s studio of guys who fuck around. We'll kind of like put a bunch of burners on at once and see what takes us. Like, no. They really have to work like a studio now, like Japan style, like project established, everyone start working at 100% efficiency till you're done. That's what Microsoft wanted, but Bungie were never that in the 90s, and yeah, they weren't that now, so that was creating problems. This game made in a goddamn hurry, but I like what we eventually got. Now, where were we? The game itself, did I have more to say beyond the production? Just, yeah, those two guys, Eric Troutman and Eric Nyland, heavy contributors in giving shape and finish to this world. Jason Jones, the lead idea generator and kind of creative beating heart of Bungie. But who are the other two guys in those commentary tracks? The confident speaker who has a lot to say about the story, Joseph Staten, and the kind of generally jovial guy who's happy to be there, Marty O'Donnell. O'Donnell is the music guy who is now famous as a kind of like Lobian figure who enjoys saying that these games are about J.D. Vance Christianity, about, you know, keeping immigrants out via ICE or whatever the fuck, but in a very lame Lobian way. Whatever. He's an alright guy. He was the music guy who showed up for Myth, but he then became kind of a general sound guy and increasingly a creative contributor. But things I can talk about later give me the impression he wasn't quite keyed in to everything that was going on. He wasn't an Eric Nyland who could kind of grab all the nuance here and would be very thorough in making sure that all of that came out. He was very much like, you know, his appreciation of Halo was probably not that much more complex than that of the average fan, where he's thinking like, yeah, John Halo, he's maybe at most a Christian allegory and we're here to shoot the aliens. And then the other guy, the kind of squeaky-voiced nerdy guy, that's Joseph Staten, and if you didn't know, he's the voice of the Grunts. There's a very entertaining clip on YouTube you can find if you look that up. Joseph Staten grunt voice, where some fans go up to him and ask him to do the grunt voice for them, which is very funny. Sorry, why is my controller doing that? I don't know. Can I quickly check that out? What is going on there? Unplug controller, plug it back in. Okay, I guess this is a mouse and keyboard video. My computer just enjoys doing that. One more second of trying. Can I get a pulse? Oh, I think we're back. There we go. I do enjoy the controller. I'm using a PS4 controller, but still it feels familiar. Joseph Staten, there's a very charming video of him doing the grunt voice. He is kind of the day-to-day director of Halo 2, I want to say. Like, he is the guy who actually delivers this game as a finished story, scenario. You know, he's the one deciding what's on screen. He's kind of writing the cutscenes and directing them. And, you know, he's kind of... He didn't build what Halo is, but he is kind of the one who decides what a Halo game is going to be about. In the sense of, like, you know, how does all of this unfold? How do we choose to present it? And so on. Does that make sense? That basically... Like, the way they credit it in Japanese, I like the word scenario. Like, if we say who wrote Halo in the sense of who creatively gave birth to it, Jason Jones, but then if we say who kind of, like, created Halo 2 in the sense of, like, planned out what this game would be, I think you would say that that's Joseph Staten, which kind of accounts for his eagerness to talk and grip on what's going on screen, and kind of the light way he sort of skims across the whole subject. That I do have a lot of respect for Joseph Staten, and even Marty O'Donnell, but that said, there are like kind of tiers of how initiated and understanding and ultimately accomplished they are as artists, and you do need all of these guys. And what really comes out in the production story of Halo, especially Halo 3, is that as you get closer down to Earth, these guys become more reliable and solid, and yeah, Halo simply wouldn't exist as a finished game without, you know, a lot of people's efforts. But in terms of like balancing kind of what we might vulgarly call creative work and what you'll say is like, you know, just getting the fucking thing done, like, Jason Jones is a creative dynamo who really I wouldn't rely on to finish a complex production or run it. Whereas like Jason Jones and Marty O'Donnell, they're more like what Microsoft wanted all along, where you can like ask them to run a conventional studio kind of Japan style, say like, we want a game which is more Halo by like a year and a half from now, and just say like fucking go. And Marty O'Donnell and Joseph Staten, they can actually like, you know, they're not going to like neurotically spiral out or get bored or burn out on you. They will just, you know, nose down and work, and that's a very admirable thing. And, you know, that said, like, they aren't these like retarded droogs who just like grind at desks all day either. They're very like dynamic, intelligent, very, you know, creatively minded, artistic people. They are, like, you know, in their own way, they're like very American art fag figures. There's like this, you know, there's a lot of genuine spark to them, but also that kind of Thomas Edison roll up our sleeves and get to work to them. Whereas like Jason Jones is more like a classic like weird auteur figure, where like, you know, he probably needs like a team of full-time handlers to get him running optimally, otherwise things will like rapidly spiral into complete dysfunction. And that's kind of where these games eventually went, but good god, I've just been jumping back and forth here for this whole time, and some of you might be going insane. I don't know, my understanding is some of you use this as a kind of podcast, so if so, then yeah, what a great video for you, just this kind of like rambling recap history of Bungie. But yes, that's my characterization of the core Bungie team. If you have notes, inputs, or questions, please put them in the comments if you disagree with any point. Also, please throw that in. I'm very happy to look at more resources to iron this picture out further. That's very much just like why so much art criticism and critique is bad, that people are unwilling to interrogate themselves or hold themselves accountable. It's very fun to have a theory. It feels nice to have a way of looking which is worked out, but, you know, the kind of mental flexibility that can produce those theories really demands that you don't covet them once they're done either. I have had plenty of pleasing thoughts about art which, once I've investigated them, I found were unlikely, which I had to discard. One example, a theory I had that I found quite entertaining, is that I thought Alex Garland might have seen the anime Blue Gender, and that inspired 28 Days Later. If you don't know, Blue Gender is an anime in which a guy wakes up from a coma after the apocalypse and has to impress his action girlfriend while running away from monsters to become a man, and that's very much also a description of 28 Days Later. But I found that, like, when he was writing the script, unless he was watching it in Japanese, he wouldn't have seen it, because Blue Gender, I believe, was dubbed after 28 Days Later came out. I could just go around saying that, like, oh, did you know Blue Gender almost certainly inspired 28 Days Later? You know, Garland was a nerd, he talked about video games and stuff, it adds up, but, like, no, you investigate further, factors and evidence stack up one way rather than another. It's an idea I found absolutely charming, but I've got to put it to bed. This monologue here is me doing that. No, it's almost certainly not true, but if I ever meet Alex Garland, I will ask him, I assure you. But anyway, you've got to have that attitude to everything. Like, at one point I thought, oh, Joseph Staten seems kind of clever and devious. Is he kind of the master will behind this? Is he the one working in all the mythology? And then, you know, I keep looking and nope, all that stuff I said just has to make me look silly in retrospect. I've now got a goddamn mental mountain of evidence. Sorry, I'm not going to link it in the description, it's too spread out, but if you look, you'll find it yourself. That, yeah, Jason Jones is the guy who's kind of like nuts for classical mythology and all these layered meta-references, and yep, it's definitely, like, without question, 110% him, so I was just wrong in the past. So yeah, Anthony, as of the Halo CE videos at that time, he was fucking wrong and stupid. Go tell him that in the comments. Right, I might have tormented you long enough with this. We might play the first level of the game while stopping to look at things. We'll see how long that takes. And that'll be video 1 of Halo 2. And who knows, if I feel really great tonight, we might even do a second one of the Earth levels. But yeah, we're in space now, and we got a space level coming, and this is kind of the counterpart to the Pillar of Autumn we've got, and in addition to being a kind of graphical upgrade of the first game, we've got the, visual upgrade, or overhaul. Really, it's not an upgrade, it was made for the same console, it's just different, but yeah, aesthetically, technically, visually, what is this game? How does this compare to the kind of indoor human environment of the first game? Well, as I said in the first game, humanity, the design language, the tendencies, everything is very rigid, drab, functional, utilitarian. They might have worked in a bit more kind of greebling, no, I won't say greebling, just kind of like repetitive details for the sake of emphasizing basically that they have detail to make things look more sophisticated, but I think they did so tastefully, and for the most part it works. I do love the monolithic slab-like appearance of everything in Halo 1, whereas this game is defined by like rivets and such which recur across the surface of things to just give them detail. It's this game's look, but on the whole, I think like look at this space station, you'll find that the overall direction is not compromised, that humanity builds in metallic grays, mostly straight lines, kind of ultra-functional. Like, this station is like 3/4 to being something out of Nihei. And by the way, if I didn't mention in the Halo Combat Evolved videos, Nihei actually made some canon comic books for the, he made a canon comic story for Halo to tie in, which gets to something we'll see very soon, but yes, another funny story is that Eric Troutman was like commissioned to, when they were exploring making a comic of Halo, that was Eric Troutman's job, and the Bungie guys pissed him off by rejecting the team he assembled and saying like, oh, well maybe you should get like Alan Moore on for us. And of course that's like the biggest like normal fag prestige comic name ever, so to a guy who is actually into comics like Eric Troutman, that is like the ultimate insult thing to make him have a fucking aneurysm. I don't know if Bungie were fucking with him because he annoyed them when they said that, or if that was just a genuinely like naive statement from guys who don't know anything about comics, but that's hilarious. And of course the team they actually got was probably more prestigious than whatever Troutman could assemble. They had Nihei do one, they had Moebius do one, it's just goddamn, and it's really impressive. The teams they gathered. The comics themselves, a couple were okay, Nihei's is the best of course, and it's interesting because he understands this is Western, so he draws in color and stuff, but it's still recognizably Nihei, and conceptually the story they handed to him works with the ideas that he already draws. We'll get to that shortly, but yes, there is a Nihei Halo comic manga thing, and it's very nice. But yeah, aesthetically, this game, very gray, very tall still. And yeah, where I've been meaning to go this whole time is, and yes, this game got remastered eventually. The cutscenes were the main showing, they were done by that Blur studio who do like movie quality stuff, but for the sake of not messing with the experience too much, I left them in the original, but once we're in-game, we can flip it back and forth like Halo Combat Evolved, so here we can do our... Sorry, one sec, we'll look at that. May contain harmful content, rejected by administration, censored. That might be some kind of inside joke there, I'm not sure if you can even read that. Administrator Rev Payne may contain harmful content result in psychological damage, actions censored. I don't know what that is, but yes, we can turn on remake mode, and I'll show you what, after the CE anniversary one they did this, and this was received a lot better. Here it comes. Hope this doesn't crash. Yeah, this is what a good Halo remake looks like, and interestingly they actually took away some detail, but in general you can see that the aesthetics are updated to be in line with what basically a good game looks like since the industry became completely static. It's in like 2015 or whenever that happened. Basically, in my opinion, after like the PS4 came out, the way video games look has not really changed. Actually, kind of. There became this kind of like weird matte plastic finish to everything, which is kind of the prestige video game look ever since. This kind of dusty, natural lighting spilling in. Do you understand what I mean by that? But yes, on the whole, like, this is not a gaming PC, at least. It's being hit by more light. Space is a bit blue. The moon is less a picture of a moon, more like a rock, which I just find less compelling to look at. Space is blue-green. the sun doesn't give us that charming, you know, like flare effect. It's more like just a really bright light rather than, ooh, so pretty. What's this called? Someone who knows photography or whatever, please explain, but yeah, I adore this effect and miss it so much. This is nowhere near as fun. We just get like the J.J. Abrams glare here. But yeah, this doesn't quite look like J.J. Abrams' Star Trek. Aesthetically, it looks something more like Alien Isolation and, I don't know, probably a few other later boring games that don't interest me. The Call of Duty in space with Jon Snow from Game of Thrones. Our man over here got a kind of like
Pay attention, 'cause I'm only going
weird
over this
photorealistic
once. This
finish.
section will test your recharge
Good
energy
God,
shields.
look at his head.
Step on in, I'll show you.
Yep, the heads in this game have a weird look to them, like they couldn't quite get as much texture as needed to make them look photorealistic, like kind of a
Step into the
step
red
down
square,
from the
Chief, and we'll
Half-Life
get
2
started.
City 17 people, but again, if you think of this game as a contemporary of Half-Life 2, none of it looks bad, it's pretty bleeding edge, and it's kind of at that nice point where everything looks like what it's meant to be,
Chief,
and
stand in the red square.
you can kind of recognize the beginnings of realism in games here, but it's still kind of recognizably unreal and video game-ish in the nice way, and yeah, when you paint a like really defined human face over this, he just looks wrong. Jesus Christ. Also, the
You have to
lighting is
stand in the
so
red square
cold
before
in
we
this,
can
good
start the
God.
test.
Like, even where the light comes in here, like, maybe it's just the contrast they're going for. It's very blue so that we can appreciate the sun hitting here as a very stark thing, but this just feels so, like, refreshing to be in compared to that other one, doesn't it? Like, ooh, we're in, like, fucking Hellraiser or something. Very nice. These look less interesting in my opinion as updated. There we go. What does that say? Destroy. And you can hardly even see the stamp in the new Fern Vision. So this is not a vulgar remake, it's one that was considered much higher effort, and it clearly is. There's a lot less asset recycling here, like this was meant to be... The impression I'm getting, I'm sure you've seen the announcement of the Halo CE remake. I really don't have much to say about that, it just looks stupid. But it looks like it's probably aesthetically going to line up very strongly with this. This is what is considered being respectful to Halo while also making it look new. Of course, that's kind of oxymoronic, or whatever the word is, that if you actually respect Halo, you won't feel the need to turn it into a kind of generic PS5 game. But I guess that's the nicest thing I can say about the Halo 2 remake graphics, is that they look like PS5 quality, which was probably like very advanced at the time, and my shitbox computer can run this, so good job. The 1063 gigabyte is not on fire right now. But yeah, let's quickly get a look at this guy now. Let's start appreciating some models now that we're done talking about the history of writing Halo. You might remember the armor from the first game, how it's kind of an under jumpsuit with metal plates sitting on top. This is still
Go ahead and
largely
stand in the
that,
red
just the
square.
plates are much
Just
more
take a minute.
form-fitting, which I think is largely to not look like he's wearing plates, because this game came out in like 2004, wars in the Middle East, an aesthetic defined by, as one friend of mine put it, Eminem playing over footage of guys with guns in the desert. You know, they're trying to... People's idea of cool military stuff shifted from, like, that being more of a nerd interest in the 90s to, like, you know, militaries are in footage of soldiers on TV all the time, and they're, like, you know, fairly grounded guys, so the military aesthetics of this game kind of take a step back from the last one into something more grounded.
Come on, son, step
But
into the
still,
red square.
conceptually, he's wearing something you can still see traces of science fiction in that, you know, the idea I had in the original game was that, like, the idea is your armor plates are kind of detached from your jumpsuit, because the idea is they'll get blown off you by plasma, and you don't want it to be form-fitting because, you know, if hot plasma hits it, you want it to, like, you want the whole piece to break off your body, basically. You don't want it to, like, be knocked into you, because then it'll just burn through, hit your body, and kill you. So, like, this guy's chest plate, is that really what you want when super hot energy hits it? Like, no, your chest is right behind it, whereas, like, if your chest is this, like, loosely attached, hanging off thing, your chest piece, then that might, like, the plasma hits it and it kind of, like, tears off your armor, is my thinking. But anyway, this game's military guy was still the one from the first game. Did I talk about Rob McLeese in the last series, and how Bungie's, like, gun designer guy was this, like, earnest survivalist gun artist guy who really thought about this stuff top to bottom? This game might be kind of meeting reality halfway for the sake of exciting people who were really into the idea of going to the Middle East to shoot terrorists or whatever, but that doesn't mean they sold out or got stupid.
Balls and step in the damn square.
It's kind of a reconsideration of the same idea, but still, you know, done to the exacting standards of a very nerdy guy who took this seriously. And as a kind of serious piece of gear, you can still see he's got his pockets, he's got his pads. This all looks pretty ergonomic. He can dive around in this stuff and his body will hold up okay, and that's probably a main concern they'll have. And now he's olive drab, but, you know, rather than being a Marine from the first game, a kind of ship-to-ship and landing combat specialist, he's a... I think the idea is we're largely serving with kind of conventional future army guys in this game, so the fact they would wear natural colors and have less complex gear does fit. Where I'm ultimately going is just that, and of course their hair is more regulation and so on. He's more on the job. Marines are more like far from home and more specialized and doing their own thing. We can fit it together in our heads however we like. Where I'm going is just, I'm generally pleased with this. I am less pleased with this because, like, where did his shoulder things go? That just seems like disloyalty to the original design. His all-around chest piece looks more like a chest piece with its toilet ring neck mount.
Go ahead and stand in the red square.
I'm just less enthusiastic about this. That bit there, what is that doing above his elbow? This, what I'm on, that's... Here he's got a kind of shoulder pad, which is kind of a nod to the Halo Combat Evolved design. Here he doesn't, because we're all about gay realism, which gives him this nerdy, weak, rounded shoulders look, which I don't care for, and, you know, he has very armored thighs and no armor on his crotch. You know, thanks, Command, that makes me feel safe. Whereas this guy's just no armor below the knees, he's just all lightened action, so fair enough. I think this one is a bit less well thought out. It brings to mind a bit of Halo 4 in a bad way, but it's not terrible either. Like, you can see some thoughtful details got in. These guys did care about what they were doing. Like, they're like, yeah, he's got all, like, stuff he might use strapped onto his belt, even though he's on this space station, but he's a gunnery, he's an armory guy or whatever, so, you know. I dislike those tiny elbow pads. Alright, buddy, I might get into your machine now, actually. I think I've tortured this room enough. Or do you want to look at these real quick? In the future, shotguns are 8 gauge. Does that interest you? Also, do you think that's meant to say 8 or 12? It's too low res to tell. And there's our... This is no longer assault rifle ammo from the first game, it is now submachine gun, I think, 5x23. In general, I prefer the shape of the original, even though bullets probably would be a bit bigger to fit into that. And how exactly do these work? You pull a tab? I always kind of wondered, like, is the idea you hold a magazine under this and there's some mechanism they worked out where, like, you pull the tab and the bullets, like, spill right in, or, like, you slot them in very quickly? I don't know. Do any real 21st century militaries distribute bullets in packets with pullable tabs? I wouldn't know. At least one friend of mine, I think, has been in the army, Afghanistan or whatever. I might have to ask if these bullet packets exist. And the shells and sniper rounds, 14.5. Yeah, note that it's not metric system as far as I can tell. Like, everything is, I mean, it's not the Imperial system, it's metric system on all of this as far as I can tell. Just a future detail. But anyway, Let's see what else spurs us if we actually play the game.
Will you stop screwing around? Stand in the red square.
Yes, let's stop
Your
screwing
new
around.
armored shields are extremely resilient, very efficient.
Yes, that's a line a lot of people
Much better
enjoy
than the
joking
Covenant
about.
tech we use for the Mark V.
Very resilient, but in this game it's
Go
easier
ahead
to
and
die.
Use the switch in front of you to start the shield
We'll
test.
get to that when I actually start playing this game, if I feel like doing that at some point.
Bingo! As you can see, they recharge a lot faster.
And who's that?
Shields go down, find some cover, wait for the meter to read
Ooh.
fully charged.
That, or he can hide behind me. You done with my boy here, Master Guns? I don't see any training wheels.
His armor's working fine, Johnson, so shut your chilly hole. You're free to go, son. Just remember, take things slow.
Yes, Bungie
Don't
have
worry,
always been
I'll
like
hold his
this,
hand.
serious ideas and kind of frivolous presentation. Don't worry, they aren't soying out here. I assure you, if you go and play like Myth, you'll find that the on-the-ground writing and voice acting is
Come on, Chief.
much
They're ready for us for the
sillier,
real.
actually, but, you know, thematic content, very heavy. Marathon as well, where it does have voice acting for the few human characters
Get
you
on the
meet.
lift, Chief.
They
We're gonna
are
be late.
absolutely absurd. Oh yeah, poor Johnson, we're keeping him waiting. And ew, look at his weird photorealistic face. Yeah, I forgot how wrong everyone looks when they did this to them. Maybe to some extent it's having to paste these faces onto old models, but it might also just be, you know, weird, wrong graphical standards. Like, as much as I hate it, this is basically how people look in video games now, isn't it? Like, this is like, you know, some normal Western shit I don't care about. Like, if I look up Ghosts of Yotei or whatever, do all of the humans look like this? Probably. Yeah, Johnson, we won't let them do this to you anymore. You look much better now. You got your one medal there. Oh, he's wearing gloves, I never noticed that. Also purple shoes.
I don't want to keep the brass waiting, Chief.
I'm admiring your uniform. Yes, he has a lot more visual flair and character in the original, I think. This is just very drab, flat, like, pay a Chinese guy on ArtStation to make me a 3D model of a, you know, distinguished middle-aged black gentleman in future Navy dress uniform. Like, no, this is much more character. This is Johnson. And if you don't remember, there was a black marine meeting us at a few different points in the first game. And the last place he turns up is the flood level where the zombies eat everyone. And now he's here. It's kind of an Easter egg where he just keeps turning up in different places and they liked him so they preserved him, but they did actually think it out and work into the plot quite well that Johnson was there at all the places we saw him and he did
You can tell Lord
survive.
Hood why we're late.
Yes, yes. But yes, they did work it out, and that's actually what they got Nihei to do. If you want to see how Johnson got off the ring in the first game, Nihei, the guy who made Blam, is the one who made the comic which explains that. It shows Johnson's getaway. And it's interesting, even thematically as well. Eric Nyland elaborated on it, and really, I think, did quite a good job of making Johnson a serious part of the story, whose role in this world you can actually think about, and key ideas which Jones wrote into the, you know, the heart of this thing under the water, beneath this surface iceberg of the game we're playing. The more you explore Johnson's role in the story, the more you will find coherent ideas elaborated upon, and yes, he's just actually an intelligently worked out part of the story. It's not just pure fan service that they brought back the funny, epic quipping Black Marine man. And by the way, every Marine from the first game is back just because they love their personalities so much. You can say they're different characters, but I think in later lore books they might even have written in that, like,
Your shiny green
yes, the
posterior
like
on
white
this elevator.
sergeant with the hat, the Australian Marine, yeah, they all made it. And I just kind of say whatever. The one who they really intelligently wrote in is
So,
Johnson.
when you
And
gonna
here's the
tell
line.
me how you made it back home in one piece?
Sorry, Guns. It's classified.
My ass! Well, you can forget
It's
about those
classified.
adjustments to
You
your
have to
ATM.
buy
Well, he's in a
that book.
particularly fine mood. Maybe Lord Hood didn't give him an invitation.
And I do like this, that, you know, he's a Marine, technically like Navy, I think, so, you know, blue pants, I just like that. And it looks less stuffy, it suits Johnson. But yes, we will have to check now if the other
When I
naval
shipped out
officers
basic,
wear blue
the
pants.
orbital defense grid was all theory and politics. Now look, the Cairo is just one of
And yes,
300
here's some
geosync
quick
platforms. That Mac gun can put
exposition
around
for you.
clean through a Covenant capital ship.
That, yes, this is the defense of Earth, which we are around now. We got home, and
Coordinated fire from
Earth
the
is
Athens,
defended
the Malta,
by
nothing's getting past
a
this battlefront
giant
thing.
series of
One
satellites with giant guns built into them. The same guns that the human fleet ships have,
arriving
but
all morning.
these satellites are considered a more
Nobody's saying
robust
much, but
option.
I'll bet something big's about to happen.
Oh, and no, maybe that's the Marine thing as opposed to the naval officer thing, that Johnson wears blue pants rather than white ones. But I do like that. And here is our Xbox capable, like, 6 Marines cheering for us, because this engine is really in agony at various points. I think you'll notice, just looking at the game's construction, they're really... This is back when they really had to consider what they could do with a video game, like, how many entities do you want in this scene? There's a very hard cap on that. It's sad. Video games can render so much more now, but they just don't quite do a lot with it. Give a sense of rich character or entity presence. The peak of that, in my opinion, is probably the first Dead Rising, a game I might play eventually here. A game I really love and would have written about by now if I had a place to. But you know, we'll get on that. I do intend to write more across the internet. And here's some Joseph Staten touch for you. He really likes this character, the Gold Elite, and he really, you know, he feels clever cutting between the Chief's kind of triumph and the humiliation of his old enemy. And yeah, there's another crowd, which is rather thin because we're on the original Xbox.
Drawn quite a crowd. If they came to hear me beg, they will be disappointed. Are you sure?
So there's a fair bit going on in these cutscenes, especially if you've played the games and you know where this goes. They're really establishing the Covenant as, you know, something you can think through and understand then the dynamics within each race's character. And we just have this whole nice sequence. The Chief gets his triumph and his enemy gets humiliated because we won the last game. I really like that our starting point is acknowledging that.
Near Io. We have probes en route.
There's Cortana again, and I think she looks different to the first game, but she does look really nice in this one. She looks very anime in a way that I like. She's got that Hime cut, or whatever they call it.
For a soldier of the United Earth Space Corps.
And yeah, Johnson, he survived all that shit in the first game. That's a big deal.
An example for all who would break our covenant.
In general, I like this because it's lots of exposition and setting things up, but it's also a very good job of acknowledging the weight of everything that happened in the first game.
Commander
And
Miranda
here's everyone's
Keyes.
favorite character,
Your
Miranda
father's actions were
Keyes.
in keeping with the highest traditions of military service. His bravery in the face of impossible odds reflects great
So
credit
yes,
upon
lots
himself
of people in the military in the future. Captain Keyes' daughter is a kind of lower middle Navy officer, and she gets decorated for him. Very good. So yeah, we're all getting medals, and here's a elite who was opposing us from out of sight in the first game. Here's your decoration, buddy. You know, I might sound like I'm being dismissive here, but no, I do actually respect this cutscene. I think it's very intelligently thought out to do a lot very quickly within a lot of limitations.
This is Fleet Admiral Harper. We are engaging
And
the
holy
enemy.
shit, the Covenant are near Earth.
Form a
That's not meant to
defensive
happen.
perimeter around the cluster. Commander, get to your ship. Link up with the fleet.
Yes, sir.
And yeah, Miranda
You
Keyes
have
has
Mac
a
gun,
ship,
Cortana.
like her
As soon as
dad.
they come in range, open up.
Gladly.
And Cortana is going to run everything because she's the brain of the human military.
Destroyed Reach was 50 times this size.
Sir, additional contacts. Boarding craft and lots of them.
They're going to try to take our Mac guns offline. Give their capital ships a straight shot at Earth. Master Chief, defend this station.
I actually want to talk about this cutscene and in general Joseph Staten as a kind of video game space virtual director and arranger of story. I really think, for all the credit I was just giving Jason Jones back there, Joseph Staten is you know, he kind of emerged from sideways into Bungie as a kind of, I think he met them because he was talking to Jason Jones in multiplayer matches of Myth. That's how he came to know them. And then through managing things like publishing support for Bungie, he eventually came to work on the creative team, and just an intelligent guy who could make himself useful. I think he really proved himself to be an amazingly talented man once he got into things. Like, this is just a weird skill set no one will teach you. But yeah, figuring out how to take a kind of general story which exists as like 100 notebooks written by Jason Jones and turning them into a coherent series of events which, you know, move things along, form a plot you can follow, which is entertaining, and also cover what Halo is supposed to be. It all lines up properly and, you know, hits every thread properly. It all comes together. Most video games are really just atrociously told and landed stories, and Halo 2, for its time, I really think is actually, like, a pretty phenomenal achievement. Like, this is actually a fantastic piece of work. We should be very grateful we were able to get, and, like, that whole cutscene, just think of how much was going on. Like, the pace of this video might make that a bit obscure, this fact a bit obscure, but this is a game which really, like, more than Half-Life 2, I think, kind of sets the blueprint for how to make a cinematic shooter and how to do that well. I'm just admiring there's more physics in this game than I remember as well. But yeah, decently constructed scene considering how many assets the Xbox could load without exploding. But yes, I was just saying, that whole last sequence was a lot of exposition at once, and, you know, this is the, like, Xbox audience, the, like, war in the Middle East is awesome audience, the when does John Halo get to shoot the aliens audience, and, you know, he had to keep in mind that that's the average person playing this game, and that Bungie still has a reputation to uphold, and that he has to introduce a new main plot and, you know, give a respectful continuation of the last game and set up this one all in, like, the space of a couple of minutes worth of cutscenes so far, and he has really, like, nailed that, in my opinion. I really think, as I'm always saying about art in general, and it's very true of good video games, that the best ones, especially the best elements of very good games, are so often ones which just kind of end up taken for granted. Like, people only really talk about writing in a game in which it either draws attention to itself by being showy and pretentious, or when it's bad. Like, it's really just a fact that, in my opinion, pretty much all of the best written video games are not appreciated as being well written or well landed as story works, however you want to put it. But just think of this game as kind of like a dynamic virtual movie, as much as that's possible when I'm just bouncing around in empty rooms for hours on end. Do you really think that, like, if you've played it yourself recently, let me know in the comments what you think, but I really think that Halo 2 is, like, a phenomenal movie game, one of the best ever made, and Joseph Staten will probably never get enough credit in his life for how well he landed Halo's old cutscenes, especially in Halo 1 and 2. Like, I know it was him in Halo 1, he's said many times, it's probably largely still happening in this game, that, like, he is, like, the virtual cinematographer, like, manually moving the camera around the assets as they play out their animations and stuff to, like, frame and construct these scenes. But in addition to that, he's, like, you know, I don't know who did the level scripts in this game and so on, or the broadest outline, but, like, the impression I get is really that, like, Joseph Staten, sorry, they're both J's, really was just, like, the writer-director, like, final overseer of what is on screen in every, like, not playing the game moment of Halo 2, and I really think that he, like, nailed that to an extent which is, yeah, just nowhere near enough credit to him specifically, or the game in general, as a successfully realized cinematic work, I think. Like, that whole opening sequence is just very impressive, the back and forth of resolving what we had in the first game and setting up two parallel threads which are going to be the body of this new game. And speaking of this new game, why don't we actually start playing it in the next video since this has taken so long? But don't worry, my blood is up, so I think I'll just cut this one here, get its sound right in DaVinci, start uploading it, and maybe take a shower or something while all that's processing, and then we'll just hit the ground running and actually play a couple of levels now that I've got the kind of backlog preamble of thoughts on Bungie as a creative team out of the way. Now we can explore their creative work. One last show for you before we cut this video. Why don't we look at this room with this on? Gee, that glass looks awful dusty all of a sudden. In general, there's a weird temperature where, like, sunlight looks kind of, like, warm, dusty, glaring in, while shadowed areas look really cool. I can't exactly say that's wrong, it's just a different visual language, a different tone for the game, but one I'm less fond of. As we move on and go to terrestrial environments, I'll be able to show you some of my favorite areas which really showcase that this game does have a very distinct visual identity, aesthetic tone to itself, very thoughtfully considered colors, and just the feel of things visually, the balance of visuals. We can talk about all of that. This game has a lot of... There are parts of this game that I like visually more than Halo 1. I think they're just very, like, just timeless, excellently done virtual spaces, video game vistas and scenes and areas. We'll get to them. There's a lot I really love about this game. I'm very excited now to actually play all of Halo 2 with you, so those of you who have not been in touch with me all this time, you've been experiencing the Anthony drought, rejoice. If this video recorded properly, then we are rolling. And yeah, I think we'll call it here, and I will get back to you.